If I told you that inflation was done, over and out, would you believe me? Well, in today's video, we are going to talk about how the Federal Reserve is trying to convince you of that. We are also going to look at what you personally can do about these circumstances that, let's be honest, everybody is feeling. No matter your income, inflation seems to be everywhere in goods and services. But we need to talk about what you, the individual, can do. All of that and more. Let's begin. The first thing we need to look at is inflation. Specifically, one Fed model suggests central bank has already beaten inflation. Yes, that's right. Congratulations to the Federal Reserve. I've got a story for you. You know, you can talk about fairy tales all day long, but are people actually believing it? Well, that's a different case. In today, in these videos here, I try to highlight what they show you and then what the actual circumstances are, because we don't want to believe what they force feed us. We need to look at the truth. Walmart cuts starting pay for some new hires. Retailer says the move is aimed at improving staffing. Others see it as a response to rising labor costs. Everywhere you go, there are more costs. The input costs are generally much higher than they were just a few years ago. And certainly that hasn't let up, at least not yet. Maybe there will be a day in the future. But as of right now, everywhere I look, I'm seeing inflation. If you can see any deflation anywhere other than your bank account, other than potentially your salary, please let me know. I'm really interested to know. Fall in home prices may already be over. Wait a second. What? Look at this. Quick recovery in prices suggests that the housing downturn could be shorter and shallower than expected. Certainly what we are seeing is inventories that have fallen, mortgage rates that are super high, and the average builder, investor, they don't want to get into this right now because the debt's too expensive. All of those things, the games, the schemes, fix and flippers, that stuff was much more successful a few years ago, harder now because you're going to carry these properties at too much of a high interest rate. And so that's going to be an issue, right? If the borrower has to take on 9%, 10% on that, because remember, this is not a standard loan you would be getting for a homeowner. It's going to be a higher interest rate, and then you're got to somehow make that back after you do your renovations and so on. It's unlikely for some. So we are now watching the potential that prices have already hit their bottom and are only going to go higher. At the same time, what's happening with rent? Considerably more expensive throughout the period. What are workers' demands when we look at these strikes that are going on everywhere? Well, in the case of UAW, United Auto Workers, they want a 40% wage hike over 4 years. Unbelievable. That is amounting to 46% compounded. You got to think about that for a second. I understand, first of all, besides the circumstance of, should they not, what I'm saying is economically, when you increase a salary over a few years by 40%, that ultimately will feed back into the input costs of these products. And so we can expect that inflation is permanently, absolutely permanently entrenched because the costs of labor are up. There's no question. The products, the services themselves that are being used, they are up. And they're not going to let go unless we have some sort of catastrophic event that somehow sends all of these down. We know that this is going to continue for the foreseeable future. This is just talking about, the strikes that are going on. UPS, they mentioned as well. UPS, they really got an increase, significant increase that will absolutely affect the price of shipping. There's no question about that. And I will let you know as part of my, the shipping that I do very regularly. In fact, just did a shipment right before recording this video. And that was a big expense when you look at these things, whether it's coming from overseas or whether it's, within the same country. I've seen an increase. There's no question about that. Whether that's UPS, whether that's Amazon logistics, all over the place, sea shipping, ground shipping. The economy slows down by inflation of prices. This is a very simple and yet overlooked aspect. When we have prices that rise, they rise to a certain point, it hits a ceiling, and we start to see a slowdown. So I can describe that where you see a staggered effect. First, people stop spending on the things they don't really need. You know what? I don't need to go there. Or maybe instead of going to the restaurant 3-4 times a week and ordering food 3-4 times a week, whatever, I'm going to cut back. I'm going to do that once a week. Or maybe it's going to be once a month. Or maybe not at all. And then they start going further and further. Then they get into the things, I'm going to, instead of choosing the name brand, I'm going to choose the no name brand. Instead of doing this, I'm going to do that. They start to cut backs. And we are seeing that today. So that is how this works. And we are right in the middle of that, in fact, right here and now. Recession results when people stop spending their money. So eventually they get to a point and they say, okay, I can't spend anymore. I can only spend in the absolute necessities, and I'm even cutting back on that. That's when we have a recession. It's when the average person, not when the Jeff Bezos doesn't buy his new yacht. That's not how it works, all right? Money printing is the government's way out, which will, of course, result in more inflation. So be prepared for that. Be prepared for them to, stave it off for a period of time. Oh my goodness, you know what's coming. And I want to ask you this question. Do you think that the Fed will cut interest rates? Do you think that they're going to start more money printing in 2023? Yes or no? That's my question to you. I want to know in the comments below. We can have that discussion here. We can also do that on Discord. But let me talk to you about debt, because I'm seeing some crazy stuff. Credit card users got bigger limits, and then they racked up $1 trillion. Banks are doling out more credit to customers, enticing many to spend more. But people said, no way. Well, just like Obama, if you remember this from a few years ago, I remember doing videos about it. Quote, raising the debt ceiling is a lousy name, which is why members of Congress in both parties don't like to vote on it, because it makes you vulnerable in a political campaign. He continued by saying, raising the debt ceiling, quote, does not increase our debt. It doesn't increase or grow our deficits. It does not allow for a single dime in increased spending. All it does is allow the Treasury Department to pay for what Congress has already spent. So let's pretend to avoid all of what was previously agreed to. If you increase the debt ceiling, you are increasing the debt. Just not directly, it's indirect. But of course, that's what they say. Anyway, let me talk to you quickly about the fact that the average credit card interest rate is at 28%. That's according to Forbes Advisor's weekly credit card rates report. When you look at the Fed data, it's showing 22%. So hey, whatever one you want to take it at, understand that people are carrying a balance on average of $6,000 at 22 to 28% right now today. This is a crushing blow to these people. They will never be able to get out of that without some sort of renegotiation of their debt. And for a lot of people, they are not doing that and they're getting squashed. Of course, at the same time, you do have the student debt, which is now, we're in that time where they got to start paying that back. $1.7 trillion worth. 40 million people are part of this. At the same time, car loans more expensive than ever before, as well as the total amount of debt more than ever before. So we are hitting records everywhere, but not in good, in a good aspect. I mean, we want to hear good things, positive things, but unfortunately, people are doing the same mistakes over and over again. And there's only a small handful of you, probably the ones that are still watching, that are making the right moves. Do you know people in your friends, your family, your social circle, coworkers that are heavily in debt? Let me know if you see that around you. I hope there's more people taking the right actions, but unfortunately, I don't see that too often. This is interesting, just showing us the amount of debt, credit card debt. At the same time, we are seeing a decline in the savings rate. So you know what's happening. People are not saving. This is money. So savings rate is money left over after paying all the bills. Your disposable income. That has declined. We see that. Of course, that's why people are spending more money on their credit cards. You can see this looking at bank deposits declining. I couldn't believe it. Small banks and large banks continuously losing deposits. If the banks are losing these deposits, they've got less reserves on hand. And while technically they don't need to keep reserves on hand because the Federal Reserve set that to zero, fractional reserve banking went to, a whole different level. But if they're going to keep reserves there, this would allow them to, lend out more. If they have more deposits, that means they have more to use to make money from. But money is leaving the door. So this is the crisis for the banks going on right now, today, still continuing. At the same time, we need to understand that this temporary, quote unquote, temporary and emergency fund that the Federal Reserve set up for these banks, well, that ends very soon. And when it does, there's over $100 billion worth of loans that now these banks need to seek an alternate source. Where are they going to get that $100 billion? Okay. They're using this right now as a lifeline, $100 billion. And by the time this thing ends, who knows what's going to be at? Let's just say $100 billion. Where are they going to get that money from? That's a question. This is a very big question mark. And I need to ask you the question right now of what can you do? Can you sit down? Can you lie down? Can you simply wait for a system to be reset so that you can then start, I'm going to start my life now. Systems reset. Assets have crashed. Oh, it's my turn now. A lot of the YouTubers are going to sell you on that. They're going to tell you, you got to wait for this crash. This big crash is going to come in. You're going to be able to buy things for pennies on the dollar. And then that's when you start acting. Well, why not start today? And if that does happen, great, fantastic. But don't bet on that, because you know that the Federal Reserve, this other central banks around the world, they want to devalue your currency. They want to print a lot of money. And they could do that tomorrow. Watch out. Speaking of watch out, watch your unnecessary spending that's going on today. A lot of things can be renegotiated. Are there things that you can cut from where you are spending right now? If the answer is yes, you should make that cut right now. That is the easiest thing that you can do to get a little bit more access to the funds, okay? Look for opportunities within your company. If you work for a company, a lot of times positions open and you let them go by. Well, apply for those jobs. This might be something good. If you have overtime, you might want to take that overtime. If there are things that you can be doing, you should jump on that. A lot of times these employers, they love the people that take overtime. They love the people that are applying for jobs, even if they don't accept them. They want to see that you have that initiative, because maybe it's not this time, maybe it's not the next time, but maybe it's the time after. All right? And then be mindful of where your money is parked right now. If you've got it in a place that's earning 0, you could easily be earning 5% these days. 5% in your money. Yeah, I know it's not much, but 5% is better than a kick in the behind. And so that's where you got to really take action on all of these things. So I hope that was beneficial to you. These videos, you got to understand, you're going to not only get the information that's happening, the daily events, but you're going to understand what can you actually do about it. If you want to know more actions you could take, what about real estate stuff? What about how to get out of debt? All these things are on Discord. You could join me on Discord and join over 1,300 people on there, totally free, 100%. Click that link in the description. You will see for yourself. And by the way, you will get notified within the app. It won't annoy you, just in the app, of every single video that I post. So that one post a day, you're going to get the notification so that we don't have to worry about the algorithm. So check that out. Link in the description. And then the comment of the day. We're talking about inflation, how the Federal Reserve has said that, hey, inflation's done. This is from Regal Rocks 23. That's funny. My groceries have increased dramatically in the last 6 months. Absolutely. I mean, they think they can lie to us. I mean, you and I, no. Maybe the average person, but we know what's going on. We realize the truth, and that's why we're here. All right. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.